take control of your mind or someone else will.
Ooh.
It is shockingly easy to hack your mind, and the people who are doing it don't want you to make it harder for them.
Yeah.
These are two quotes from a show we just began rewatching. It's called Hacking Your Mind. It was a PBS, it's a 4-part series.
Yeah, I think it was over a year ago.
It was 2020,
Yeah.
early 2020.
Yeah.
Before COVID, actually.
Yeah, and we watched it at that point and went, whoa.
So we just watched part 1 of this 4-part series, and it is based on the research that was done by a man named Daniel Kahneman. He and his partner, I believe it's Amos Tversky, the T is silent. They wrote a book together called Thinking Fast and Slow, and it has been the foundation of a lot of study of cognitive biases, which we've just been, we just did a video recently saying, we call it stinking thinking, but it's probably, keeps you alive, cognitive biases. And that's, from an evolutionary standpoint, that's certainly true. They go into, they demonstrate that in this show. It is, highly recommended. This is, I can't even call this a summary. This is some high points to hopefully inspire you to watch this show. So the Thinking Fast and Slow is an explanation of, we have 2 systems of thinking.
Right. So we either go really, really fast and make snap decisions, or we go really slow. And sometimes we can control them.
You have a choice. We have some choice.
Like when one of the things that he uses was driving in England, where they drive on the opposite side of the road. So we really have to think. Whereas if we're riding in our neighborhood, we don't. It's on autopilot. We know how to get there, and our brain puts us there. But when we're actually saving ourselves from being killed or run over in England,
in terms of that driving on the other side of the road, we have to think about it more. But there's an argument about the fast thinking is really what oftentimes keeps us from getting killed.
True.
By duck or react really fast. That fast system, you used the word autopilot, and that's perfect, because it's like an autopilot system, and most of the time we are running on autopilot because it saves energy and it saves time. I forget what percentage of our energy consumption is done by our brain, but that slow thinking system does take a lot of energy. It consumes a lot of energy.
And a lot of calories.
Yeah, right, calories. Literally calories.
We literally use brain calories.
And we get, if you have to think about something a lot, like solve a math problem, it's tiring. And so we try, again, conservation of calories for survival. As much as we can do on autopilot without having to think about it, we're better off in the evolutionary world. But as they demonstrate in one of the little stories that they played out in this, with a nomadic tribe in the middle of Tanzania, I think
it was.
This fast thinking system that kept us alive and allowed us to thrive in a primitive environment is now working against us. In particular, they talked about nutrition. We are hardwired, evolutionary wise, to consume salt, fat, and sugar, because when we were hunter-gatherers, and those things were
at a premium.
Yes, they were scarce.
Yeah.
And so when you got them, you gorged, because you might not get them for a while. Right? And now we're in a society where they're everywhere.
Oh yeah.
And
walk through any grocery store.
There's no scarcity.
And drive down any major highway.
But we're hardwired. So we don't even have to think about it. I can't spoil all of this show, but they showed a guy, the guy that's the narrator of this, or host. He was looking at pictures on his computer and having to make really snap decisions about 2 foods. One of them being tastes good, a yummy kind of thing, salt, fat, sugar, and one being a healthy choice. And he was really surprised at how much that cognitive bias, that fast thinking system,
wanted that piece of cake.
Took him toward those yummy things when he thought he had made healthy choices. He was mistaken.
Right.
So this is such a rich. We can't cover but one episode at a time because of it.
And the other thing is what's fascinating to me is all this becomes very hardwired in our brain, even by the age of 3, where they did all these testings with all these 3-year-olds on wearing different color shirts and being a part of a group and food and things like that. You know, they could barely talk, but they were still already making those decisions based on, you know, somebody smiling,
like me or not like me.
Exactly.
The colored shirts was one. It, like they spun a little dial, like one of those little things you get in a game, and it either landed on orange or green.
Right.
And then they put on based on that, they put on a T-shirt, and then they showed them pictures of 2 absolutely identical cartoon characters, except that they had a different color shirt on. Which person do you think would give you a piece of candy? Oh,
the one that matched the shirt.
All of their choices were very heavily biased towards the same color shirt that they were wearing, and it was a completely meaningless grouping other than, you know, it was current. That kind of leads into one of the other biases they talked about, which is anchoring bias, and this is a well documented cognitive bias, that something that's we've just recently, when we don't have enough information, when we're trying to make a decision and we don't have enough to make it on, our brain goes and finds something similar but unrelated, completely unrelated, but like a number, and they were talking in terms of pricing or a number, and they pulled the most recent number they saw, and people leaned towards that number just because they had seen it, and then they linked this to used car pricing. So I'll leave that for a great spoiler. It's a great lesson. It is a great lesson.
Yes.
The other thing, so this fast thinking system, it's linked to the oldest part of our brain, the survival part, you know, what we call the lizard brain. All animals have it. They you know, talk about monkeys, and they kind of show that, but also even, you know, into lizards have that system. And yeah, it's non-conscious, it's fast, intuitive, it's habitual, it's emotional.
It keeps us alive.
And
it used to keep us alive.
It used to keep us alive. It's mostly very good at what it does, but it does make serious predictable, not unpredictable, but predictable mistakes. Yeah. And so the anchoring bias is one of them. Another one that they did is about politicians. They showed, you know, clicking through very quickly, quarter-second views of politicians, and based on whether or not they had a confident smile and a strong jaw, and people choosing that, you know, one person over another, they found that 70% of the people that had that appearance won their elections. Yeah. So
and it was basically we have so much information overload.
We think we're making rational, thoughtful decisions when we vote, and we're not.
Exactly.
And we're
as we know.
So, you know, a quote from Kahneman that stood out for me is, a very important part of your thinking is done outside of your awareness and outside of your control. But all is not lost, because we have these two systems, we can choose to slow down. We can, with some awareness, and once we are shown how these biases affect us and the scope of the mistakes that they cause us to make, we can then make a conscious choice to overcome them.
Right.
When it's important. I mean, we still need to be able to think fast. Okay, I was just remembering, thinking about that system, a time when our oldest son was about 2, and I had gotten out of the car to go. We went into the post office to pick up our mail, and I came back out with my hands full, both hands full. One hand full, and I opened the car door, and he fell out. He was standing on the driver's seat, and he fell out. This was a van, so it was it was 3 or 4 feet, and he was headed head first towards the pavement, and with no thought whatsoever, I stuck my foot out, because it was the only thing I could move. I stuck my foot out and I caught his shoulder and I flipped him over so he landed on his butt, his hip, instead of on his head. And I mean, I'm confident it saved him from a relatively serious injury.
Right.
And it happened in an eighth of a second. I mean, it was, and so that's the value of the fast system, even in interpersonal stuff. And we have to have it. It's just that we need to have an awareness. And so we're going to put a link to that PBS episode 1. It's a 4-part episode. It's called Hacking Your Mind. Strongly recommend this as an understanding, a clear example, many examples actually, of the importance of recognizing cognitive biases and doing what we can.
It was amazing.
What we can to overcome them. We can. They're wired into us. We can't eliminate them, but we can mitigate them.
We can be aware.
We can be aware, and we can narrow the gap, and we can slow down a little bit, especially
and
when
you know how good I am about that.
So enjoy. Thanks so much for joining us, and we'll see you in episode 2.
Yeah, when we get to it.